Welcome to the Wilmington Entrepreneur Podcast, where we sit down with the best to learn about building, growing, maintaining, and mastering business and life.
Stash is looking good, man.
Thanks, man.
It's good.
I go back and forth about the stash, to be totally honest with you.
It is. I'm still getting used to them. It's just I can't decide if it's like amazing or if it's just weird, but I like it either way. And I'm not talking about yours. I'm talking about in general.
No, you can talk about mine. I literally looked in the mirror the other day and was like, I think we've come to the end. Maybe the end of the year.
I've gone years with having like a goatee and stuff.
Yeah.
I will tell you where I come back to. I feel like I look more trustworthy, clean shaven.
Yeah. So yes.
I really do.
No,
and I just
think
can't
you're
get around
right.
it. My daughter
You're
loves the facial hair, and she gets so upset.
You're completely right. And I think what happened this year is Top Gun came out, and everybody,
Yes.
including myself, got influenced. And I went straight over there and was like, man, those guys look so badass. I need a mustache.
I need a mustache.
That's the only thing stopping me from being cool. And now I'm so committed to it that I need to get through the holidays. So that way I have at least one set of family photos forever with the mustache at like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I like that.
And then I'm probably just going to kill it forever.
That's a good commitment.
And it'll just be 1 year that Caleb had a mustache and I'll never have it again.
Well, we should probably discuss that on the podcast. I mean, it's what the people want to know.
Look, we're already rolling. This is already part of the podcast.
All right, good.
So welcome to the first ever Wilmington Entrepreneurship Podcast. I have no idea what this intro is going to be on a regular basis, but this is episode number 1, and I could not be more excited to be sitting here in this room with the Ladd Gasparovic. So
I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know, right? So my goal for the Wilmington Entrepreneurship Podcast is to be a source of information, advice, and insights on growing a business from leaders and business owners here in the Wilmington area. I've been here full time, coming up on 4 years now, and I've just been amazed at the amount of amazing entrepreneurs and business owners here in the community, and I've got an amazing one sitting ever. But this is the first ever episode, so we're going to focus on business leaders, thought leaders, really anybody that has a small business has something to say for somebody else. I think that anyone wanting to get into business and start something, there's a quote out there that I really, really love from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Did I write it down? Where'd it go? I didn't write it down here, but essentially the quote reads, in my walks, every man I meet is my superior in some way, and in that I learn of him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a powerful quote.
So true.
No matter how far we get in business or how master we are in a career, we have something to learn. And that's going to be the goal of this podcast, to get people here that we can learn from, we can stand on the back of giants. And I'm excited for you to talk a little bit about that. So anyways, a little bit about Ladd. He's our OP. He's kind of our operating principal here at Keller Williams and this local branch of Keller Williams Innovate. And he's had an amazing career. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of turn over to you and just, start right at the first question. Tell me a little bit about your background in entrepreneurship and in business. And just take me through Ladd's life. You were born.
I was born, and I'm still alive, and we're still going. Yeah, so
that's good.
So I grew up in the D.C. area. I'm married to my amazing wife of almost, 18 years, Stephanie Gasparovic. She's been my business partner and just my partner in life. Got 2 amazing kids, Matt and Milena. They're 9. My son's almost 10, actually. My daughter's 13, so she's just entering the teenage years, which isn't nearly as bad as everybody's been telling me.
Yeah.
At least it's not yet, but she did get Invisalign yesterday, so we're now into orthodontics.
I've heard that's expensive.
Another reason to be an entrepreneur, especially in a business where there's no ceiling, because that stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So, actually, my wife and I both are from Southern Maryland, just south of D.C.
Okay.
I grew up there. I'm actually excited. I just booked a ticket last night. Going to take my son. I'm going to fly to D.C. this weekend, take him to his first ever Commanders game. Nice. And we're still in the hunt. So for the Commanders, formerly Washington football team and other things, for them to still be relevant in December, like no time really in his lifetime has that happened. So I'm pretty pumped about that. From the DC area, came to UNCW, so I've been down here since basically 1994.
Wow.
Was an English major. Started out thinking I was being pre-med, ended up going to law school. My dad went to law school. I just didn't know what else to do, so I went to law school. I was a prosecutor in Greensboro for about 4 years. In that time, I ended up being a gang prosecutor and worked with the Violent Crimes Task Force. Learned a lot about that. Loved prosecuting, to be honest with you. When I deferred my student loans, put myself through law school and everything. And then by the time my student loans were deferred, I could not really have paid my loans.
Wow.
So we had invested in my first piece of real estate in 2001, bought a beach house. Wasn't married at the time. My mom and I bought it. My mom's definitely one of my business mentors, and my mentors in life. We'll talk about her at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
And we bought a house down in Oak Island, and Stephanie and I re-met. We grew up. Her mom actually drove me to school when we were little, and we didn't see each other again for about 20 years, and then we re-met in, I guess, 2002, 2003. We had that place down at the beach, and she and I were coming back and forth from Greensboro like every weekend. Every time we would head west on I-40, it was depressing going back there. Nothing against Greensboro. It's a great place.
Right.
But my heart was in the beach, and then every time, like Friday afternoon, or like we would head east and like heading into Wilmington, heading into the coast on I-40 when you see the sunshine, man. I remember that from the college days coming down here. So we just one of the craziest things that we ever did, like the definition of an entrepreneur is like somebody that takes risks and, and basically goes out on their own, hangs out their own shingle, and does their own business. And I look back at some of the things I've done which seem like incredible risks, but I think it's easier to take risks when you're younger. Whenever I got, 15, 20 years on you, when I was a lot younger, I would take a lot more risk. I might have more than that. I don't know how old you are. You're a lot younger than me.
30. I
There
turned
you
30
go.
this year.
Yeah, so I got 16 years on you. So we just decided that our heart was here, and she just got into real estate, and I was a prosecutor. Had a buddy down here, rest in peace, Bill Haynes, was a friend of mine. We invested in a piece of commercial property in Hampstead, and Bill's like, man, if you move down here, he's like, there are no young attorneys in Hampstead. You move down to this area, like I'll throw you a bunch of business. And we just up and moved, man.
Wow.
We moved down here. I started a law firm. Stephanie started in real estate. We would get stuff in the mail, and like I would take a credit card, would transfer a balance of a credit card to another one. I don't advocate doing that, but we literally started small businesses off of using like checks off of credit cards and stuff like that. Again, I know a lot more about business and finance, so I definitely now than I did then, and I highly don't recommend that.
Just a little disclaimer here.
But I did
Sometimes you got to make it work.
And at least I was smart enough to keep doing it so that we were never paying like the 18%. It was like, hey, this one I can get 0%. I'm going to move this over there. But it went from a prosecutor back then. I was making like low 30s, like 30-some thousand. Wow. Stephanie was a teacher. So we were both, we were both employees of the state, and it's great and it's service, and I love being a prosecutor. It wasn't going to pay the bills, and so that was my dip into entrepreneurship. I didn't really realize that's what I was doing, but I opened my own law firm, and when you open your own law firm, the first day, you just sit there, man.
Wow.
And then you wait for people to come through, and then you network.
Can you imagine? And
then I built my own law firm, and I did that from 2004 to 2009. And in 2009, had a firm, couple locations, bought another law firm down here from a buddy of mine, Russ Bryan. He was getting out of the practice, built that up, brought in a couple partners, and then ended up selling the business to my partners, and then gave me enough income over a year or two to get out and get into real estate. My wife was in real estate. Cool story about that. Her mentor kind of came to me. She got pregnant in 2009, early 2009, and her mentor who had helped her in business came to me and said, hey, I've seen it. So Stephanie was Realtor Magazine 30 under 30 that year. Like she had done really well.
That's amazing.
The reason I married her, man, is she's family first, and as soon as she got pregnant, man, she really that was her focus of being a mom, and that's what I wanted, man. She was a teacher.
Yeah.
So her mentor came to me and said, I've seen this before, man. She's going to lose her business. And he's like, you say you don't love practicing law. You say you don't like it. You've been into business. You want to be in development. And he's like, I think you should be a business manager. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So she was trying to build a real estate team. Nobody kind of knew what a real estate team was or how to do it. So I jumped in September 2009, sold my practice, kind of took it easy for like a year in a way.
Wow.
Our daughter was born in October. I stayed home with her a lot. Woke up one day, the end of 2010, and realized that we were going broke fast because that money stopped coming in from selling my law firm. Got incredibly motivated. Went out, and as my wife and I together, we did a lot of new homes and development sales. So we had 12 or 13 new homes developments. Built a pretty successful real estate team. And then I'll fast forward a little bit. We were at a couple different companies, and man, we were banging our head on the ceiling of, I'm a business guy. I wanted to run a business. I would rather do things with people. I know that life is easier And business is easier if you don't have to manage anybody. You don't have to deal with people. I get that. I also don't feel like you can do anything great by yourself. You just can't. It's just
if we're all robots, it'd be easy.
It's the foundation of teamwork, man. Team sports. I'm an athlete. I love sports. It's the same. So so analogous to that. But like I think anything great. To do anything great, I think you have to do it with people. So I love the idea of building a team. I will tell you, like entrepreneurship, the way you get better is you just try it and you fail it and you keep going. And then I think one of the greatest things about entrepreneurship is you just learn to fail and deal with it and keep going at a much higher capacity than people who aren't entrepreneurs because you don't have a choice. It's totally different knowing and waking up every day that you have to produce and it's your business, it's your thing, than going somewhere and getting a paycheck. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting a paycheck. It would depend on who you are, what your goals are, and everything. But for me, I always wanted to build big stuff, and I love the idea that I'm not limited by anything. And I love the idea, even though it's hard, it's really hard, and relationships are tough, and people are tough, and business is tough. It's exponentially harder to build businesses and do it with people. But it's also it's incredibly rewarding. So just to tie a bow on that, 2013, we were really bumping our heads on the ceiling. I had gone to a training by some guys. Like this is when Facebook was going. There was chat rooms, so I met some really cool people that I'm still friends with to this day. They invited me up to a thing in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, and it was called Career Visioning, and it laid out the blueprint to build a real estate team. And I've been in real estate by that time for 5 years, and nobody had ever shown me that. I didn't know it existed.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's how I got in, sort of like connected with some Keller Williams people, and they were just having conversations at a higher level than I was having. Now, people are having those conversations more, but back then nobody was talking about what your P&L should look like as a percentage of gross income or what your org chart should look like or any of those things. So I plugged in, I got connected, and somebody said, hey, Wilmington, there should be a market center there, and I think you should do it. And I said, let's go.
Wow.
Now, here's the crazy thing
amazing.
is somebody else is going to do it, and at the last minute, that person wasn't able to do it.
Really?
I won't get into it, but that person wasn't going to get approved to do it. And they said, nah, we've had history with that person. We're not going to let them launch in Wilmington. We think you should do it. And somebody from the group, so everybody we were sitting in a room, 6 of us, and everybody was like, we don't have the person to do it. And I was like, well, I think I can do it.
Wow.
So, 8 years later, 9 years later, a ton of failure. Like we've had success, but man, if you've been on the inside, and people watching this that have been on the inside, like it might look good from the outside. A lot of pain, a lot of failing forward, a lot of failure. Some stress and some broken relationships. You do the best you can, and I like to think I'm a better person for it. Definitely a better leader, not perfect. And I think entrepreneurship, man, is just the best way to grow. I'm a growth junkie. I think entrepreneurship is probably the best conduit for personal and professional spiritual growth. And I love it, man.
I love it. Hey, man, there's so much good stuff in there that I could pick your brain for hours, I know. But a couple of themes that I picked up on and is, you're at the level you're at now. You didn't just start at that level. You didn't just start at that high level conversation. There was a series of risk and bigger challenges and more mindset opening. This is over a long period of time. I think it's really easy to see someone like you and go, oh, he's a great leader, very charismatic, good visionary. He just is there and not put together the pieces of the foundation to pull back the veil and see, he's there because he's failed over and over and over and over again. And then the cool thing that I think you mentioned too is you went from a mastery of one thing to your craft, your service in law or prosecution, and then later into real estate. But then you didn't only master that craft, but then you started mastering the people element, because that's the next step that I'm learning.
That's the key.
Once you jump up to managing people, the people will master that. You just need to be a good leader, and then from there, that's when you can scale. And I've been seeing that, and I'm starting to see it in my own business now too, and it's amazing. And I think another thing that's really cool, and I want to definitely talk about this too, is how you and your wife really work together. And you shared that Stephanie was crushing it in real estate, and she was just doing so good, and you actually put your business, you kind of stopped that to join her. That's amazing trust and in your spouse and your partner. And I have a similar trust in that with Kelly. And I know her talent. I know when she's good. And that just shows a lot of willingness to trust other people and to lead. But I think that's awesome. So
That's not always the easiest thing too, working with your spouse. I mean, Stephanie will tell you that. Like, we definitely, we've had challenges working together. So I think we've worked out a way to do it. She's really good about, we were talking about balance earlier. That's one of the things we'll talk about on here. Like, it is hard when you're an entrepreneur because you love it and you get a little bit obsessed with it. You know, there's a healthy part of that. It can also become unhealthy. But Stephanie is one of the things that I've always family first, and I am too. It's just that the way my brain works, it never stops, and so it's not uncomfortable for me to think about stuff and like 11 o'clock at night we're working on stuff because I love it. That doesn't work for her, so she's like, hey, like her brain she'd cut it off at 5 and she cut the phone off. So there's a healthy balance there. And then the other thing, just to circle back what you said, like the leadership piece. I love entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur in the real estate space is what I am. I love investing. I love development. I love the brokerage. We've got, this brokerage and the brokerage. We go all the way down to south of Myrtle Beach now, Pawleys Island. We've got about 650 agents and, 10, now 11 offices. So the brokerage is amazing. It kind of has been the launching pad for everything else. I love the entrepreneur side. The entrepreneurship. And so I think in anything, entrepreneurship is great. I love real estate. I'm super passionate about this space just because I think, like, one, it's a basic human need of shelter. Everybody that we know either, has it, needs it, wants it, should have it. And I really believe that, people build wealth through generations based on real estate. People build wealth generally by owning businesses or owning real estate. And we're helping our people, our agents, build businesses in the space of real estate. So we're like right at the crosshairs of the two ways that people build wealth. And I have really learned, well, I'm sure we'll talk about wealth later because it's one of the things I'm passionate about, is I believe that we should be talking about wealth. I believe we should be talking about how we build passive income for our families, for our employees and our people that work with us, and then our clients. Why we are a trusted advisor. And I think everybody needs a trusted. Do you have an attorney? Do you have an accountant? Do you have everybody talk about have like a money, financial advisor? Typically those are people that are talking about stocks, bonds, and things like that, but they're not sophisticated in real estate. And a lot of times people aren't getting real estate investment advice, and that's where we come in. And that's why I'm real passionate about real estate agents, like changing the way we think about that so that we hold ourselves out like that and we can help people build wealth.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely want to circle back to the wealth building Wednesday class and thing you've been doing, and that initiative to kind of improve our financial literacy, because that's something that as I have stepped into being an entrepreneur now for 4 or 5 years, and have most of my conversations, like 75% of my conversation now, is about financial principles and literacy, and what bucket to fill when, and the ratios of what I need to have for a successful business, comparing that to other business. I've never thought about that before. When I was a W-2 employee, I had a task and I would get paid the same each week, and whatever that task was done. I didn't know what I didn't know what the budgets were. I didn't know what. I was naturally curious, and I would ask those questions just because I want to know what's going on. But I think that is amazing how it's not amazing how many people, it's like so taboo to talk about wealth, talk about income, what you make. I've loved being in sales because it's so open. It's like, you're going to make $100,000, you're going to make 200, you're going to make 80, or
you're going to make nothing matter. Or if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it does hold us accountable to our production.
Because you can make nothing. You can make a lot.
Yes, you can.
And then I always would like to preface it with this. People get wacky when you start talking about money.
Yeah. So weird.
Our definition of wealth that we talk about is having enough passive income to finance the personal mission in your life. It's not about being rich. It's not about having a lot of stuff. It's about having freedom, and it's about having options. And I think as humans, I think we need that, and I think we should focus on that.
Yeah.
My wife's had a lot of medical issues. My daughter needed Invisalign. I don't want to have to figure out whether or not I can get someone in my family or one of my friends medical care or some type of option that they need or treatment. And I also don't want to miss out on experiences. I don't want to not take the trips that we want to take because of that. So we don't drive fancy cars or anything like that, really. It's more about just, I think, having freedom and having options. And I think that if you craft it in those terms, what we're saying is you can't be wealthy unless you, number one, have passive income and a plan for that. Because if you get hurt, don't want to work, can't work, sick, whatever, die, If you don't have passive income, that stops the moment you stop going to work.
Yep.
And then the next thing is, even if you had money and passive income, you can't be wealthy by our definition unless you know why you exist, what's your personal mission in life.
Oh, so important.
There is nothing wrong with being a W-2 employee or not, prioritizing, growing wealth, money. If your personal mission in life is something that you can achieve and be happy and fulfilled by not having a certain amount of money or having a certain amount of money and being a W-2 pay, like, I'm all about that.
Yeah.
In my heart has always been doing big stuff. It's just how I'm wired. I think it's how God created me, and I like pursuing that stuff, and it feeds my soul, and I'll never get tired of doing it. But I don't want anybody to hear this and go, oh man, I'm not poo-pooing anybody's W-2 jobs or whatever.
Absolutely.
We have W-2 employees. We treat them well. We try not to limit them. We also try to work on where do you want to be in 3 years? What's important to you? And try to help them to see, like, you need a path for wealth. You need a plan for wealth. And that's why we're working on some of the syndications and some of the real estate investments and development stuff that we're rolling out.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you clarifying that. We're not demonizing anyone with a W-2 job. If you like your job,
I have a W-2.
There you go. If you're comfortable and you like it and you're happy and you're fulfilled and you're on your goal, your plan, you're on track for your goals, then do it. That's completely fine. But I also resonate. I think that anyone who's listening to this podcast or watching this on YouTube or something is an entrepreneur and probably has
true. This
that
audience
itch. They probably have that itch of I am greater. I am bigger. I want to do something bigger. I want to make an impact.
And I believe we all have that, and I believe that God has planted that inside each of us, and part of our life's journey is to figure out what that is, where's my area of giftedness, and then how can I help you? How can I help other people with it? Because it is real easy, especially if you're really driven and really like if you're a builder, if you're somebody that wants to build stuff and grow stuff, it's easy to accidentally be focused on the goal so much that you forget it really is about the growth and the process along the way, and it's about helping the people with you get there. Because man, our organization, like I said, a lot of organizations look great from the inside. Inside, most of them are pretty hectic. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of failure. There's a lot of failing forward especially if you're in growth phase. But I think along the way, what we've learned is to just really take care of people and say, hey, where do you want to be? Because you in an organization, in your organization, as you grow your company, you're gonna want people. If you would not want an organization made up of people that just think like you and me and act like us. I'm not a real steady. I'm like on the disc or anything like that. I'm super high on dominance and influence, like sociability. I can be all over the place. I would probably wreck your organization if you put me in a administrative role. There are people that to take the kind of risk that I've taken or that you've taken, it just wouldn't even be on the table. And there are so many people you talk to me, you say, hey, would you rather have a comp plan that could get you here, but you might make this? Or would you rather just know you're going to get this? And there's probably a much higher percentage of the world is like, I don't want the risk. I want certainty and I want steadiness. Yeah. And then, and whether they, and as long as that is fulfilling to them and they're hitting their life goals, I'm all about it.
And one thing you mentioned certainty, and here, this is something that's kind of, and maybe we just have a screw loose, as entrepreneurs, whatever. But that it's funny because you mentioned security and, the whole time that I have been in sales and on full commission now, which has been 5 years, 2 years, 2 years selling cars, and then getting into real estate.
Wow.
So this is
time flies, man.
I know it's
you're
crazy.
Not a rookie anymore. You're not a new agent.
It's insane. But the whole time, it's funny. The whole time, I never felt not secure. It was a big risk, but I didn't feel because I knew that I was going to figure it out. And I think that you knew that you were going to figure it out too when you started your law practice, when you transitioned from that, when you started this. I mean, those are big risks, but you bet on yourself and you knew the quality of who you are. You knew the challenges you've been through before. And I think it's important to recognize those challenges that happen in our life so we can see ourselves go through these growth and watch it back. I mean, looking back on your own life in just a couple years, it's insane to think about the stuff that I wouldn't have even thought I've been able to accomplish now. But I wasn't ready for this last 3 years of growth if it wasn't for that 2 years before that. And then it wasn't for the year and a half or 2 years in other jobs before that. I've worked everything,
Yeah.
So,
Well, the other thing whatever people see this and they look at it and they go, hey, you went from here to here.
yeah.
And it doesn't look like this. It looks like this, some success and some failure. I mean,
Yep.
I can kind of slice that up a few ways, but like you're going wherever you want to go. You pick like the purpose of a vision. You got to have vision. If you don't have a vision of where you want to go, what you'll be, then nothing really happens without that. There's a concept called first creation, second creation. First creation is like you have to imagine it. You have to visualize it in your mind. Mm-hmm. Once you can see that, and then I'll get a little deep, little psychoanalytical, but like this is just like neuroscience. There's like hundreds of millions of pieces of information coming out of our brains every second. Imagine like driving down the road. You got cars around you coming both ways. Somebody's passing you. You got trees. Every tree's got tree limbs, and they've got, pine cones. There's so many things. Like your brain does an amazing job of filtering out the vast majority of that, so you can focus and drive and hopefully you're not, but texting and all the other stuff people are doing out. But like, you have to filter it all out. There's so much stuff there.
Yeah.
When you get real clear, and this is like the secret and the law of attraction, that stuff's like, that's like hippie, new agey BS.
Yeah.
But the reason people think it's real is because when you focus on something in your mind, you say you want it, you're not necessarily attracting it to you. It's been there, and now you're just going, I'm available to see that now because my brain's been filtering all this other stuff out.
Yeah.
When you make a decision that you want to build a business and you say, hey, I want to get from here to here, it's going to be a train wreck, most likely. It's going to be a failure. You're going to fail. You're going to hire people. They're going to be the worst hire that you've ever made.
Yeah.
You will some point. If you hire people, you'll make some terrible decisions. You'll have people that show up on the first day and you go, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
And the only way that you actually get better is to just go through that process. So it doesn't, from the outside, it looks clean. On the inside, it looks like a bunch of failure.
Yeah.
I'm a really high I too, so I'm really driven, but I'm also very social.
Mm-hmm.
I like,
big time.
It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. People don't like me. I've had to get used to that. Not everybody.
Oof.
You can't please everybody.
I've
got people that think that, I've if they didn't succeed in our organization, it's maybe my fault or the organization's fault or somebody else's fault. And the truth is, it's just maybe not always the right match.
Yeah.
So being okay with failure. And then the other thing I've seen in our growth is it's almost always been attributed to a person. Like for our sustained growth is like, all right, we get in business with this person. Obviously, Shannon was one of those people for us for an operational standpoint. Amanda is an incredible leader, one of the top leaders in the country as far as I'm concerned, or in our space for sure. In the Keller Williams team leader and leadership, and like she's changed the trajectory of our company. And there are many more. And so, and I think we're about to get in business with a couple other people like that. But our success has always been about people.
It is. It's amazing. And there's some amazing people here, which is a testament to that initiative and vision. Can you take that mic and kind of turn it a little bit more
like
towards your
this?
face? Yeah. Just a little bit closer.
How's that?
Yeah, that'll work better. Perfect. I just
Cool.
want to make sure that that I don't miss you when you're talking to the camera. Okay, so one of the things you said, you're first off, just sitting near you is just like, when you get to talk about this stuff, I can tell this is just such a passion.
I get fired up, man.
You get fired up,
I do.
and it starts flowing, and it's great. But it's like so much.
You can rein me in.
So
you can cut me off.
I want to rein in a little bit because one of the things you mentioned.
You got to rein me in.
I got a list of general questions, but honestly, some of the stuff that you're saying is just stuff that I really think people that might know you want to know more about you.
Yeah.
You mentioned you got to have a vision, and then you talk about. I'm sure you've read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think
I've skimmed it.
I think it's
that's a hard read. I know the book. But I don't know that I've ever actually read that. But I love to read. Yeah,
you know the principles of it, I'm sure. And but I think it was number 2 that was begin the end in mind.
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind, just like you said.
Vision.
Have a vision. And now, if there's one word I've heard to describe you, I've used this myself and most people. It's been visionary. I've heard that word thrown around with Ladd multiple times, and because you do have that big vision. I love seeing you get into the bubble charts and start your org charts and whiteboards. This man is a whiteboard freak.
I love whiteboards, glass boards.
When did that concept of really understanding the importance of a vision start to implement in your life or business? Was there like a year or experience, or was that a slow burn, or how did you realize that importance?
Yeah, good question. I've ever thought about that. Probably the last few years I have gotten, like, one of the most freeing things for me has been to realize is it like larger organizations are actually easier to run than smaller organizations in my experience because you have more resources and more people. And as you get larger, you can have people work in their, in their areas of giftedness. So, okay, I'll use Amanda, for instance. I didn't realize how poor of a day-to-day manager or leader that I was until I worked side by side with her.
Yeah.
She is, and I'm not saying I'm the worst at it, but I'm saying when I let people down, it was because the vision's here and it's going to take a long time. It'll take a while to get there. But when you see other people do it, you go, all right, well, I'm going to get out of the way because she's better at this. Mike Ashcraft, who's the pastor of our church, Port City Community Church, I think is one of the most humble leaders, servant leaders, and a great communicator. I really love the way that he preaches and speaks because he draws a lot. And I think that has helped me learn sort of and grow my faith in that, and also grow my leadership because I've talked to him and he's helped me understand, and I have other consultants to talk to that said if that's your space, you need to spend time on the vision because that's the most important thing in an organization. I think I would feel guilty before of being out of the office because there was so much stuff to do. Now I know my main thing is to look down the road far enough to know where we need to go. And that's my job. And so that's the most freeing thing in the world because running day-to-day stuff for me, I can do it. I'm more of a builder and I like to start stuff. I really struggle. I've got ADD. I can't keep things organized. It's tough for me. I got a million ideas. And for me to have to come in and when I practice law and manage details for other people, man, it just wore me out. So it's so the last few years people have really said to me, this is what your role is, and you need to stay in that role. And it's the most freeing thing ever because now I feel like that is my job, and I love that part of my job. So my job is basically, CEO is vision, people, and accountability. So I love vision. I like to see what's possible and map stuff out. I have a lot of great help with strategy. The strategy is how do we get there and what are the things that need to, and that's a whole separate thing. I'm okay with that. It's probably not my top area of giftedness, but I'm okay at it. But Amanda's great at it. I've got other people around that help us go, okay, if we're going to get there, how do we get there? But those people, we've kind of just created a more flat organization where people in our organization know where my strengths are. And I'm very open now about what my weaknesses are. And they try to keep me out of those areas, and I try to keep myself out of those areas. And they're allowed to remind me. They're allowed to call me out. They're allowed to tell me, hey, Ladd, listen, these ideas are great, but we're not getting at them now because we've already got our entire GPS, our business plan done for the year, and you're going to have 5,000 other ideas, and they might all be good, but we don't need to do them. So I got people around me that keep me in check and say, hey, we don't need you here. And part of the way that has helped me was, I lost my mom in October 2020 and just was I'm going to take some time off, man. I'm going to take some time off. My mom she was probably where I get my entrepreneurial spirit from, and was my business partner on some stuff and investing. And she was always the one that was encouraging me to go take risks and do all that stuff. And when she died, it was a phone call that I got. It wasn't expected or anything. Yeah. So I took almost 3 months off, without even coming in. And then the next 3 months was kind of getting back in. And that was kind of when you're out of there, everybody, you got great people around. They're doing everything well, and I wasn't not working. I was still thinking the whole time, but I was processing my grief and losing my mom, and then also I'm also constantly thinking about business and world domination, and because I'm a big our businesses our mission for Innovate companies is to be the most vibrant, attractive, diverse, and agent-centric real estate company on the planet. And to create 100 net worth millionaires. That number's probably gonna have to go up because of inflation. Because millionaire it's a goal. It should be there, but it's honestly not going to be enough for people as we keep going. But really pushing the vision of that and saying I want to always be focused on that. And then people in the organization now, I think they know that that's where I should be. I know where I should be, and honestly, it's the most freeing thing in the world.
I love it. Hey, I'm going to pause super quick to get that camera back on, and I'll edit this section really fast.
Do you want to check to see if my audio was messed up?
Yeah, I'm just going to double check things really quick, but I'll cut back into this. Yeah, we're still rolling. We're still looking good. This camera is a little old school, and
shuts off.
Yeah, I think it has an SD card kind of issue with it. But I want to Cool.
You think my mic's still good?
Yeah. It's looking good. I mean, you can see on the red over there, as long as when you talk, you see you're
When
on the
I'm
bottom.
talking.
You're on the bottom over there.
Yep.
You got to see it. So I'm on the top. So when I'm talking really loud, you can see the waveform kind of.
Yep. So when I'm talking, as long as I can see that wave going.
As long as
so
as
if it
long as
gets
the two
too
tracks
far away,
are red, we're good to go.
So if it gets too far away, it won't be. Okay, I see
Yeah,
it.
that'd be hard to hear you. That's why.
Gotcha.
That's why you kind of got to eat it a little bit.
Yep.
But, all right. So I don't even know time check where we're at. We must be. I don't care. It's going good.
Oh, I'm good, man. For whatever.
So, okay.
My challenge is always
Being
too much content. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey, I'm going to try to rein you in, but I'm the exact same way. I'm so ADD. But you said something I think is really important that I'm going through learning right now, because I've made a big step in my business this year from going from being a solo agent and just producing, only focusing on my clients and my craft and my work. And I made a hire of an assistant this year, is working part-time for me. That was very weird, very odd. I've never ever had
scary in the beginning.
It's
terrifying.
honestly terrifying.
I remember that conversation with my wife when she hired her first assistant, and we were terrified.
And y'all, it's really scary as a newer entrepreneur going from making commission and not having anything guaranteed to saying, hey, I've seen enough cycles of this where I'm confident in myself, but now I'm going to bring on a salaried employee. I mean, I did it right. I got a W-2 employee. Yeah. I've got payroll taxes, everything set up by a CPA.
But you're creating W-2 for somebody else out of thin air, out of commissions. Like you got to produce, and that's the risk. That's the thing about entrepreneur.
And the pressure from that, on my level, so in your level, that pressure would be really small because you've done this so many times. But for me,
it's all relative because it was huge when we started.
Exactly. It's a big proportion of my mind space and mind share right now. But what I'll say is that through that hire, and also the cool thing, Keller Williams actually provided me with a pretty cool tool called the KPA, or the Keller Personality Assessment.
KPA, Keller Personality Assessment. It's an amazing
incredible tool, and we could do a whole podcast on that alone, but I did have my employee do that, and it just gave me, it's like a personality test on steroids with some cognitive elements and some aptitude for your career specific, and it goes through specific real estate jobs where someone would be better fit, suited, high or low level, just depending on their fit. Just because you score low for something doesn't mean you can't do it. It's like you said, you could do administrative work, but it just means that you'll be burnt out really quick. And her KPA was like total opposite of mine. I mean, mine was like, agent, mega agent, productivity coach, stuff that deals with people. That's like the top of mine. And then hers was like total just support, agent support, assistant, secretary type stuff. And it was really, the training her was difficult. Because I felt like I had to, it was scary to back away for the first time and let her do her thing.
Got to slow down to speed up.
And the cool part about it is once we built a few systems, and I really, and I had some amazing agents in this. Brittany Allen sat down with me and talked with me about her hiring process, because I just know Brittany is really good with her systems and stuff. And and again, amazing people here helped facilitate that. But now that we've been, 6+ months, 6-7 months, longer than that, she's telling me to stay in my lane. That's the best part. And the cool part is I did have a friendship with Kristen before, but so having her come in, I already kind of had like that friend rapport. But I just told her, I said, look, here, don't be afraid to grab me by the shoulders and say, focus, Caleb, because the whole reason I have her there is to free me up to do more high impact tasks in my business. If I'm talking to people and I'm moving deals forward, that's the best use of my time. And me paying her whatever her salary she needs to do that is so freaking worth it. And I can't believe that I didn't do that earlier, because I felt like I needed to control everything before having her on.
Once you have experienced it, it's really hard to ever go back. And man.
I talked to another business owner recently, a mortgage broker, and I was asking him one of the first things he got his assistant to do. Excuse me. And he said, just managing the email inbox. And I didn't even think about this. This is something so rudimentary that I thought it's like you go.
Email is the worst thing on the planet.
Once you, I know
it's the most inefficient business tool, and it's pretty much it's pretty much all people do all day in the business world. And you talk about lack of sap of productivity.
Oh my God. Such a time
email,
suck.
social media, instant messaging notifications. Like the reason people aren't hitting goals a lot of times is because everybody's all over the place.
All over the place. It's a time suck. And because of that, he said, have your assistant go through your emails. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And when we just went through it, like for the first week, kind of went through it. And I told her how I would respond to it, what I would and wouldn't use, or what I wouldn't say. At this point, she kind of knows what I would respond with, which is amazing. And I just told her, if it's something you don't know about, like have me proofread it. But if it's something you feel comfortable, just launch it and go. The more you can take off my plate, the better. The less decision I have to make, the better it is for everybody. And she's like, and the cool part is she's confident with that now. She's like, that's a daily thing for her every single day. And I wake up and I know that all the unreads are reds, and now the starred are what I need to respond to, and that's it.
Here's the thing: everybody, a lot of us, especially if you're entrepreneurs, a lot of us are control freaks, even if we don't know it. Most people would say they're not, but you really are. I am in some ways. I've learned to let go in a lot of ways. Part of the way you let go is you let people do stuff, and even if they don't do it the same way you do it, you don't have to jump in and tell them. I mean, you hire smart people to get out of their way. There's some things that they'll do that wouldn't be exactly like you did, and maybe not quite as good, but it probably won't matter. The truth is, you probably weren't responding to emails like you should have been. So it's like we sit here and we create this thing in our mind like, oh, man, I don't know if I can let somebody take over my email inbox. Well, you're not even responding to your emails now. If you had like my 9-year-old son responding saying, hey, like my dad will get back to you if it's important, like whatever, that'd be better than like me not responding.
Exactly.
So we're in an interesting place now because I've had an executive assistant for a couple years, Dee, and she's been amazing. But we did that motel deal last year. We did a beach motel renovation, like 35 units. We're going to talk about investing. That may come up later, but it was such a big project. Like last January, I just said, hey, every day meet me at the motel because we got a lot of work to do. And that project consumed her, and she ended up sort of being like the de facto general manager. Yeah. So I went from having everything managed, email, all that, to kind of going backwards. Now she's going to go and run a property management division now that she's got that. So I'll be hiring an executive assistant, someone to do that. And admittedly, like my email management is not great. It's not a great way to do it, but everybody that works with me knows, like,
we just text Ladd.
or like if we're working together on a we have a rhythm of different meetings and stuff. Have a list and let's knock out 12 things, then we talk. Please don't send me 12 emails or even worse, 6 emails with 2 things in each of them. Be efficient,
right? Yeah. Well, and that's the stuff that you got to learn at your level, because you're and we're gonna have entrepreneurs of all different levels watching this. If you're just starting out, you listening to Ladd and talking about leveraging stuff to an executive assistant, that may not be realistic advice for you right now. It may not be something that you're able to do or even conceptualize.
Or it could be a virtual assistant.
Or it could be a virtual assistant. But I think the principle here is auditing your time and looking at what is high impact and what's low impact. That's and what can you get out of your day, and what can you continue to focus on, no matter how you leverage it. And even if it's just you, and guess I've been solo for a while now. I'm kind of, that's why I like this perspective, because I'm getting amped up and I'm excited about it. So I get to learn from people that are ahead of me, and that's the whole point of this whole thing, is to just to learn from where we're at on the ladder. That version of what he's talking about may just be showing up at work every day, giving yourself a schedule when you don't have one, or giving yourself a deadline when no one else is, or something like that. That may be step 1, and then you work up to
putting people around you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a little all over the place, like a lot of us are, like I am, like you probably are, well, one way to manage yourself is put people around you, because you have a higher level of commitment to other people than yourself typically. It's why I have a trainer. When I'm getting back in shape, I hired a trainer. It's expensive, but I don't let him down. And he texts me and reminds me, and I didn't want to go work out Tuesday night at 7, but I had it set. I was tired. I wanted to just, it's dark. I wanted to just chill by the fire. Made myself get out and do it, and felt good. So part of it is when you do build an organization, you have people around you. They hold you accountable. You hold them accountable, and you can just achieve a lot more together.
You can. So we've been just kind of off the cuff here. There's some questions I want to make sure that I ask.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I worked hard in coming up with these questions, and there's some good ones on here. But we've already covered like a bunch of these. But let's talk about what is one of we talk about all the good things. Can you remember a big mistake that you've made in your career? Just
we could talk.
Maybe one big one that stands out more than others.
Man.
You don't have to name names or anything like that. But
well, it's funny. I mean, it's always the best things are people, and probably the worst things are people.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't believe people are bad. I believe that there are bad matches. If I could go back, I think using some of that language would probably be better, because I even had a partnership recently with somebody amazing, and we just kind of looked at each other and said, man, I don't know that we're the best match for this. And it's super amicable and everything's great, but we're both fairly, mature now in business. I mean, we're older and we've had a lot more experience.
Right.
I've probably let people go, but I'll say this. Best moves have been people, and the worst moves have probably been people. But it's not. I'm not saying it's because it was the wrong person, but maybe the wrong match.
Wrong fit.
I believe everybody has God-given talents, and I believe that everyone is talented in certain roles and in certain organizations. If you don't get the person right with the match, then you've got a problem. Our business culture is the most important thing that we have, and we're God, family, then business. And we're about growing people. We just did a lot of work with an amazing company called Brand Builder, and really got down to what's your one thing. We grow people is what we do. We try to find people that are in non-growth environments that are a fit for us. Everything we want to grow them, and then everything grows together. There are people that might be great people that might be a great fit for somebody else's organization that may not be a fit for our organization. Mm-hmm. And so it's my fault. It's my responsibility if I hire that person and they're not the right person. It becomes even way more of my fault if I leave them in that position and don't either get them out of that position or coach them through that. And then I would say, especially before, probably just would become resentful that they weren't doing what I thought they should do, and probably just weren't clear enough with them to say, hey, Caleb, listen, when I thought it was the right match, maybe it's not. I think you're a good guy, and I hope you think I'm a good guy. I don't want to fail you. I don't want to harm you, but this is what we talked about, and this is what I'm seeing. And I think if I had more guts to just have those upfront conversations instead, I do love people, and I don't like hurting people's feelings. Mm-hmm. So I would kind of go talk to my coach or talk to somebody else about it, not gossiping, but talk to my coach, what about this? And I mean, coaches, a lot of times they're not going to tell you, hey, you need to get this person out, but they're going to coach you through the process, or maybe you need to let them go. And I'm always going, man, if I give them more time. Yeah. The longer you let that go, the worse things become. Mm-hmm. And there are people that I probably have lost relationships with that I may not be able to get them back. And it's probably from me just not having enough guts to come in as a leader and say, hey, Caleb, I think we miscalculated this. It's probably on me. But this is probably not, I don't think this is the right match, man. You tell me if it's true, but this is what we want. Yeah. And waiting weeks or months or sometimes longer to do that really, really, really harms relationships. And companies are just people, groups of people. Mm-hmm. And if you harm a relationship in there, you're going to harm the organization. Mm-hmm. And then that person, it's my fault as a leader, as you got to put it on yourself. But then that person, if you leave them in there, or if you have somebody that's just not the right fit and they're upset or they're angry and they're running around, voicing that, it just harms the organization. So I've been in situations a few times over the years, different companies where, for whatever reason, not the right match, and just not taking responsibility and making the change, it has just really caused a lot of issues.
Everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to be the leader until it's hard, until it's time to sit down and have that conversation.
But I mean, I say this genuinely. I can get a little fired up. I'm not a yeller. I'm not a screamer. I don't get fired up like that. But I can get emotionally charged, and sure. I can have conflict conversations, and shake hands, have a beer with somebody afterwards. Right. But when you do that, it's just tough in an organization, and I think people think that some of these people might think that I don't like them, or that I think it's not that. I love people. Yeah. But just because somebody's not the right match for that position or the organization doesn't mean I don't like them. Doesn't mean I don't want to have a relationship with them. But it just doesn't always work. Yeah. So
it sounds like to me, if I'm going to sum up that question, it sounds like to me that your biggest, and we could phrase this question like regret too. Your biggest kind of regret or something, or weakness might be times that you would have managed or not let not let that person be in a bad fit for too long. You would shorten that and get to that conversation faster. But you also told me, I mean, you have a high I as well in the disc assessment. I'm a huge
I don't like to hurt
I.
people's feelings, man.
I love to be in rapport with people. People like me, and it's super difficult for people like us when we want to maintain that rapport. And I know how important it is.
You ever had somebody come to you and say, Caleb, what you're hired to do this and you're not doing it, and what you're doing is not actually like what we want? Like it hurts, and so you avoid those conversations. I mean, I've had one-on-ones with people or whatever, and I'm not the only one. I mean, people on our team have done it too, because in an organization it tends to look like you and act like you. So it's no coincidence that our organization and other people have done the same thing. Now, I know people on the opposite end of the spectrum that are like, love to fire people or love to have conflict. Yeah. I'd probably rather be the way I am, but I think that I just have learned that, like, I do regret some failed relationships from people that I wish that I had maintained friendships with. And I think that it comes from not having candid conversations early enough. Yeah. And I think that's weak leadership, and I've been a weak leader, and you know what? It's how you get better. And I'll never master this. I'm getting better at it, but it's always going to be, it's always going to be a learning process.
So as an entrepreneur, one of the things that can be difficult is staying motivated, staying on top of inspiration. I don't know if have you ever heard of Mr. Beast at all? He's a YouTuber.
I have. Okay. Yeah, he's the Greenville guy.
Yeah.
I've heard about him.
Mr. Beast, he's like one of the most successful YouTubers ever. And if you want to listen to, that guy's obsessed with building a business and building. His mind is just incredible to listen to him talk about that. But one of the things he talked about was, and I've never thought about this concept before, but he talked about sourcing inspiration. And now he's more in a creative field too, but I'm also in a creative field. Sure. The real estate is just as creative in kicking my butt to get the creativity of how I'm going to have conversations. But so he talks about sourcing inspiration. He was talking about when he was doing his YouTube career, he would be literally watching, like 4 hours of YouTube videos a day before going in and filming and stuff. And he committed that time. And that, so how do you keep yourself inspired and motivated? And that, I know it's not just one source, it's a holistic, it's everything works together. But what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're maintaining your motivation?
So great question. And admittedly, like, I haven't always done it at the highest level, and it's just the kind of old thing of being like, you gotta make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of people. So there's like, you've heard sharpening the saws, the Stephen Covey principle. Like, if you're the fast way to cut down, they're talking about those big trees. Is like,
if you have 4 hours to cut down a tree, spend 3 hours sharpening the axe.
Because literally, like, if you're trying to saw down a tree with a saw that's dull, you're just going to be grinding and not really making progress. So you stop, sharpen the saw for 45 minutes. In the next 15 minutes, you can make way more of a cut than if you use it. And so sharpening my own saw, taking care, we put your own on a plane, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help other people. I've failed to do that for a while, and then if you're a visionary and you show up grumpy because you're not taking care of yourself, it's not a good place to be, because I know that I'm already difficult to work with, because I have a lot of ideas, and I think I see something in my head and I think we should be there, and there's a long process before you have it in your mind before it actually happens. That was the process I was talking about, first creation, second creation. It's a process. So I've got to show up inspiring. It's something that I work on. I do need to work on. That balance of like high I in the disc and high D is difficult, because if I get really focused or really stressed, there's some people that think, I've gotten feedback before that people think I'm a jerk, or people think I'm arrogant. If people know me well enough, I think they probably like, well, I can't believe that. But it's true, because I might come off like that. So I think the way that I've learned to protect my my own space and make sure that I'm good is one. I think obviously it's simple stuff, man. Resting, exercise. I believe that motivation and consuming motivating things is like something that you just always have to do. So listening to Mike, like my pastor, I talked about, there's such a correlation between like listening to him on Sundays and like the way that I lead the company, hopefully, is because I just see so many correlations between what he's talking about. And, leadership is biblical. It's being a servant, right? It's serving others, serving, It's God first, then others, then myself. And so, just constantly, and then being around inspiring people. So I wasn't at the meeting yesterday, but Amanda texted me what she sent everybody afterwards. And it was just this thing called the Peace Index, which is, hey, how are you showing up in these areas of your life? Because if you're not at peace and if you're not in a good space personally, you probably aren't showing up well at work. And those are probably some of the things too with people where we've had issues with people, is recognizing that when people aren't performing, I won't say performing, if someone's not the right match at work, sometimes it might be that their peace index where they are in their life is just so rocky that they're not showing up. If somebody's in financial stress or somebody's going through a divorce, and there are so many people right now that I've talked to, maybe it's the point in life I'm at, but divorce and separation. So, just really making sure that I'm keeping myself inspired and motivated. Podcast. I love the Ed Milet podcast.
Okay.
He's inspiring. He's fired up. He's happy.
Yeah, he's intense.
I love John Maxwell. I love listening to John Maxwell. He's also just motivating and happy. I've gone like my I love sports. I'm an athlete like at heart, and I've always been. And I've gone through years at a time where I haven't taken care of myself.
Yeah.
And I've tended to go like really high, like I'm going to be in CrossFit and I'm going to do, triathlons. Or then I'm just going to like do nothing for like a year.
Right.
And so I'm trying to take out those peaks and valleys and just say, hey, I want to live a healthy lifestyle. I'm not going to go too over the top. I've had a lot of injuries this year. I've herniated a couple discs, and that probably happened in CrossFit like 10 years ago. Thanks, CrossFit. But
man, I'm surprised you didn't get injured the one time that you had to carry me on your back.
Oh,
I did
do that. Yeah, I did that. That was an F3 thing. If you know F3,
my God,
this guy's not little. He's big. What were you probably?
I'm down a few pounds, but I was every bit of 270.
Dude, you were 270. I had to carry this guy on my back on the beach.
There's a workout group in town called F3, Faith, Family, and Fitness.
I forgot about that.
And I didn't even know. Someone joined it, or someone invited me to join. I joined, and then one day I went and Ladd was there, and we did a partner workout on the beach. And they were like, "Find someone about your size," and we're both like, 6'3", 6'4". And it was like, man. Well, I guess we're the same size. So I carried his butt over there, which wasn't as bad as turning around. Man, when I jumped on his back, man, I felt terrible. Yeah. I was like, this man is about to eat sand. I'm about to, and I didn't know him that well. I was like, this is like the head boss.
He was holding me tight. I felt like we got really close. He was like just snuggling me from the back. Yeah.
Well, I was just like, maybe if I get close enough, I'll
it was cold out too. That was a winter workout.
I was just trying to stay warm.
Yeah,
that's really what it was.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was summer, and he was still trying to snuggle. But that could be why I tore my meniscus, man. Because I tore my meniscus this year. Probably an F3 workout running with sandbags. Now, it's not the workout; it's the fact that I would go through these peaks and valleys, not work out, and then you show up all fired up, and then you hurt yourself. Well, and I'm 46, man, and my body, I don't have the body of a 25-year-old anymore.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even at 30, things are starting to go downhill already. But you talk about just staying in fitness. I think that's an important concept too, because what you said there is because I'm like that too. I'm trying to change it where it's like, I'll get extremely motivated and I'll go through a phase where like I'm hitting the gym every single day and I go and I overload myself. I go really hard and then I'll push it too hard. I get a little injured and my body literally says, you cannot do that. It stops you. But I think that we oftentimes don't equate that to our business in the same way. And if we're trying to show up and just supercharge our business and put a ton on our plate, but we don't have the habits of sustainably showing up and getting all that little stuff out of the way, it's also just not as sustainable. You're going to pull a muscle in your business just like you're going to pull it in your body. Your hammy's going to go out, and then it's the same.
And you go backwards. Right? So it's like if you actually just had if you just progress. There's a quote. This is like it's something like long progress in the same direction. The idea, it's just the tortoise and the hare thing,
exactly.
Like you just steady stuff over time, keep hitting that same nail over and over and over again. It's very easy to get distracted and do a million different things, but just consistency, man.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and I think too, it's really easy to hear that and say, oh, well, I don't want to get injured, so I'd rather not go to the gym and not pull a hammy and not get hurt.
Then you look like you're in shape, and then you have a heart attack.
Exactly. Or you're not doing anything at all. So
and you just don't feel good, and then you show up and things aren't the way you want them, and so you're just a little bit of a jackass in the way you communicate something, instead of being like, hey, Caleb, help me understand this. And I just show up and I'm not feeling good about myself, maybe, hypothetically, because I'm getting, I was up to like 245 the other day, which is too big for me. So I just started, like making some diet changes and stuff. But let's say you're not feeling as good. So then I just go directly to like, man, what, like, that's wrong, you know? And so then I'm now trying to lead you, and you've got to trust me and respect me. And just because I'm not feeling great, because I'm not taking care of myself, I just throw a little dart or say something in a way that I may not have said it. If I come in, I already worked out this morning, I worked out last night, I'm standing a little taller, feeling a little better, and I'm just a little happier. And it makes a big difference, man.
And it's important that I think the cool part is you recognize the impact of your words. You know, when you're talking to an employee or someone in your organization and that works for you, you know, your conversation down to them, especially when you're giving them a task or is going to be more impactful than the other way. So I think they're going to be listening to that with a lot more, you know. When I tell Kristen and I'm like, hey, I got a task for you, I mean, she perks up and she knows that what's about to come out of her mouth is going to be her initiative. But if I'm not careful in the way that I, you know, present that knowledge, and if I'm in a bad mood just like that, I may you may say something you don't really mean because you're just or you get real comfortable too, and you kind of vent a little bit, and then that may not be the time or the place. You know, that's so difficult to balance those things as a person who wants to stay in rapport with people, especially when you have like a little bit of friendship. You want to relax a little bit, but I think it's super important to remind as a leader that our words as leaders and entrepreneurs mean people are going to take that to the bank more so than you know, someone who has limited responsibility and is not managing people.
One of the really cool things that I've learned I've had some, I mean, just one tip is I've had a coach when we first got into real estate in 2009, when I started running my wife's team. First thing I did was hire a coach. I started Googling and real estate teams, and then, you know, ended up hiring Dirk Zeller, actually, who's an amazing coach and real estate investor. I still stay in contact with Dirk. I've had a coach ever since then, and I've had a lot of coaches in different areas. And so even if people don't even know they're my coach, I will latch on to somebody in some area, whether it's finance or whatever, at least a mentor. So I think that's important. And I had a coach one time tell me, like, all right, it's just the way you say it. There's another book. There's a book called Crucial Conversations by Joseph Grenny, and then there's another one, or that might be Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. Both of them amazing books, will change your life. Crucial Conversation, but I think it's Joseph Grenny is a faith-based book, and it's amazing too. But like, we're responsible for the words that we say and the, like, quote unquote emotional weight that we cause. And so, like, one of the things that my coach taught me years ago, I can't remember who said this, was to say, hey, Caleb, I want to have a conversation with you. Can we have a conversation, like, I don't want anything to come out the wrong way, because I'm not trying to be, you know, aggressive or rude, but I do want to just have like a frank conversation. If anything comes out the wrong way, give me the ability to rephrase, because I'm not trying to, you know. And then you say what you want to say, and then you're like, hey, because I want to make sure that you're not receiving it like in a way that I didn't intend it. But if I've got two people that I'm talking to, you've got a different lens and you got a different life history than someone else. I'm responsible for how you take it. If you're blunt and you can take all the feedback in the world, I can talk to you like that. But if I'm now talking to, you know, your executive assistant, and she is somebody that I'm not using. I'll use some a different example. But let's say you're dealing with somebody that's more sensitive. Maybe they've had a just relationships, or the way they grew up, where they're used to getting dumped on or getting, you know, attacked or whatever. It's up to me to communicate to you guys differently, and I can't be mad that she's upset about it. So, you know, it's on me how that person receives it.
That's an incredible level of responsibility, and I love that you're sharing that as a leader.
I still work on it, man. Still work on it, because I'm sure I don't have a lot of filter, and I'm an external processor.
Right. That's dangerous. I am too, because sometimes I'll find myself externally processing something in front of maybe my employee
or wife. That's even worse.
Or wife.
Sorry, Stephanie and I have done that for years, and
I see her kind of like wide-eyed, going, "Oh God!" Like she kind of feel the task load coming, you know, down the pipeline. But I need to get wrapped around it. And you're right. Our words carry weight. one of my, and I've got a couple more questions and I want to get kind of towards the close, but you mentioned, coaching and mentorship is huge. And so I've had some amazing mentors in this business. One of the biggest mentors I've had is Baxter Cheek, who's an incredible agent here in our local market. He does disgusting numbers.
He's always happy too, man. That's what I love about Baxter. Always happy. And you want to be around people like that.
Yes, and you do. And so he told me, he's like, Caleb, 90% of our job is what we say and how we say it. I mean, and that is literally it. I mean, if you really think about it.
And he's had amazing mentors because his family, I mean, his mom and his dad, just incredible family of people.
Incredible.
Then so he's mentored by them, right?
So early in my career, he would I would role play on some phone calls and stuff, and he even, and I may or may not get in trouble for saying this, but I even sometimes would call in and have him on a 3-way call and have him muted, and I would call the listing agent I was trying to negotiate with, and I would let him listen to me on the phone, and he would just be there, and he would have no interest in the transaction, but just more like, hey, how did you say that? How did that phone call go? And then we would digest at the end, and he'd say, hey, I think I think you were just kind of processing here and you said this, but that's probably not going to really help you. This wasn't really necessary. I would change this up. And it was eye-opening to have that mentor. First off, it was very uncomfortable to
feedback.
I didn't like that. But the difference is I wanted his feedback because I liked the way he said things. It sounded like me. It sounded like his values and delivery was something that sounded like I wanted to convey. So I was like, well, I want to learn from this guy. And that's why I think is important. There's millions of different mentor options out there. What would you say, give us some advice for some entrepreneurs that are looking for mentors, or how mentors play a big role in your success?
Yeah, probably best thing I can say on that is I think everybody needs a coach, everybody needs a mentor, but you need one in the different areas of life. And if you say, all right, you want to we go deeper into wealth, there's 7 areas of your life, and if you read, the best book on that is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And it starts with your spiritual life, and it goes to your physical life and your personal life and your key relationships and your job and your business and your finance. Those are 7 areas.
Yeah,
you got to choose a mentor in all those areas. You might have somebody who is a great mentor in in your spiritual life, and that person probably or may not be, able to mentor you in the other areas, right?
Right.
You might find somebody. I've heard. So Gary Keller is a mentor of mine. I've met Gary. I've had some dealings with him. I don't have daily access to Gary, but he's one of my mentors in business and really in wealth as well. And I'm a lot of what I'm doing is kind of sherping his knowledge on wealth and business and reading other stuff and sort of packaging it in a way that it works for my ADD brain. And I think really just being intentional about it and saying, number one is you just got to realize, I want to grow. I'm about the journey and about the growth, and I'll never get tired of growing. I'll never get tired of learning to be a better leader. All the stuff that we're talking about, I mean, I said stuff to people in the last few weeks that probably wasn't as well received as it could have been. I know that for a fact.
Sure.
And so even though I know, hey, I drop a book and I'm like, you're responsible for your own emotional wake. Dude, I just totally screwed that up, and I'll still screw it up.
Right.
Ask my wife. We're opposites, and opposites attract. Well, I'm an external processor and she's not, and I've had to learn to think things through in my mind before I talk about them and process things. But in that the one thing you map out the areas of your life and you say, who's a mentor in this area of life? Your business mentor, and I think the example Gary used in Quantum Leap, which is a great class that I've taught and taken a bunch of times from some mentors. He talks about Warren Buffett's been his business mentor.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's had a lot of access to Warren Buffett, but he's read a lot, and there's a lot you can learn from Warren Buffett. But Warren Buffett is not someone he would pattern his life after for some different reasons and relationships and stuff. He's got a different coach or different mentor in relationships and in other different areas. So I would say, everybody needs a coach. That I've heard before, Tiger Woods was the best golfer in the world for a long time. He had a swing coach. His swing coach couldn't hold a candle to him.
Right.
But the difference is you can't see yourself. You don't experience yourself the way you are. I realize that I'm difficult in certain areas, and I'm maybe very assertive in some areas, and I'm a little wacky and visionary. And I'm okay with having feedback, and I want to get better, and I'm okay with having people tell me to, coach me and asking for feedback.
Yeah.
It might sting, it might hurt. I ask Amanda for feedback all the time. One of the things I love about our relationship is she's one of the only people that'll probably tell me like what I need to hear.
Right.
And she'll tell me.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I ask for it, and sometimes I don't ask for it, and she tells me, and it's good,
Yeah. But you better have it.
But I'm blind, man. We all have blinders,
Really, really quick, I want to touch on your passion for wealth building and education on wealth before we get to kind of the conclusion. So tell me about that. I've been a part of the Wealth Wednesday classes. They're amazing stuff. Why are you passionate about that? What makes that such an important initiative?
Yeah, so the real quick story on that is about 7 years ago, I sat down and kind of just literally on like a scrap piece of paper, a napkin, I just said, all right, I've been in business since 2004. That's when I left and moved. We left the district attorney's office. I was a prosecutor. We got in my law firm. Didn't make a lot of money the first year or so, and then started doing well. My wife was doing well, got into six figures, and then and grew it, and kind of thought we had arrived. The market tanked. We had some years where we about like everybody else about lost everything, built it back. But we had a long period of time, and now I'm 46, and I've pretty much been in the working world since I was like in my early 20s. So you're going like I've been working for more than 20 years or 20 years ish, and I wrote down on the annual basis what I thought our taxable income was. And it was millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then I looked at my bank accounts, and I was like, where's all the money?
Where did it go?
Where's all the money? And I realized, man, I didn't have a plan. I wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of books, and I had always wanted to be like a budgeter and be like, oh, man, how come I don't know what I'm spending on groceries and all that other stuff? And then I just realized, like, that's not going to work for me. I tried so many times. I tried every budget app you could think. I tried all this stuff. I tried, it just didn't work. And I read a few different books, and I sort of like, I would say I'm more of like a Sherpa of information. I'll take the information from this, and I'll make it in a way that it's like practical.
Right.
And I built a system that's pretty easy, and I've taught it in Wealth Wednesday in the 8-week wealth building blueprint, where it's like, you start with mission at a high level, and you go, what do I want, and why is wealth important? You got to have that, because that's the engine that drives everything. And then you got to have a goal, and our goal was like, all right, I believe that we should be in our country. I don't think we take finance nearly serious enough. And I think because of that, we say things like, well, I got a guy or a girl for that. I got a CPA. They're going to handle that. Well, your CPA is not actually staying up late at night thinking about your wealth.
Right.
And I love my CPA. He's a mentor to me and working on some partnership stuff. He's amazing. But his job is not to stay up late at night working on my wealth. I'm actually a client of his. Yeah. Now, and I've said this for years, even before he was my CPA, I actually had to take responsibility and go, man, the reason I don't have any money is because I'm an idiot. And I've been making all this money. I got no system for it.
Yeah.
I increased my lifestyle every time I started making more money. And I'm not even talking about fancy cars, just going, bigger house and this and all this other stuff. And then just not really intentionally investing. So you got money. You're either investing for somebody else or you're investing in yourself. The world's set up to auto draft money from our credit cards and our checking accounts and everything. And I turned that around, and some great books I read. One's Profit First. Another's called Automatic Millionaire. And I kind of took the concepts from these books, and I set up all of my money coming into one account. And then I know what it costs me to run our family. Per month, and every month I automatically or manually put in that amount of money, no more. That's how I budget. It's called bank account balancing.
Right.
Bank account budgeting. If it costs me $5,000 a month for my family, which man, I wish it did. It costs more than that when you get kids and everything else. But that was a very realistic number for a period of time. The way that I can budget is I will pay all my bills out of this account. Nothing else. I'm anti-credit card because you just don't have visibility. I've got some credit cards, and I'm not totally like Dave Ramsey.
And if you're using like points and you're like really going down it, that's like another thing. But we're not talking about that.
No, and the problem with credit cards is you're paying for it like 45 days later, so you don't feel the pain of it. But you have everything come out of one account, and if that account doesn't have $5,000 in it. If you start at $5,000 in the beginning of the month, and you need to put more money at the end of the month, you went over budget.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you spent more money on eating out. You could drill into it. But for years, I was trying to struggle with the budget, and I realized I'm not a budgeter. Some people are. God bless.